This screencast tutorial is on GarageBand, the Mac-based software application for podcast creation as well as for audio recording and editing. This is the podcast that I should have showed you during my in-class presentation regarding middle school and middle school learners. Now, what you notice again right away is that there are video or visual outputs here, and you will not have any sort of video or any sort of still images in there. This is not an enhanced podcast. This is a traditional audio podcast. So you will just have male voice as well as any loops if you wish, and then importing some audio from an audio collection. However, let's just take a look here and play from the beginning, and you can just sort of hear and get an overview of what GarageBand is about.
Welcome to Middle School, a survival guide for new teachers. This podcast is designed to help novice educators.
Now you notice right away that when I started speaking, the other track here, this jingle, lowered in volume. And this is due to what's called ducking. With this arrow, yellow arrow being highlighted here, that controls this audio track for the sound whenever I'm speaking to always be a bit more present than what is happening underneath. Even though the volumes are the same, this is always lower because the ducking is taking place so that my voice is always going to be just a little bit more present and a little bit more louder. So what we're going to do now is we're going to create a new file. We're going to create a new project. We're going to go to Podcast, and we're going to create sample podcast 2, and you have to choose where to place that. I like to put that on the desktop. And here is your workstation. You have tracks, including a visual track, which we're not going to use. We also have a male voice, female voice. I'm going to get rid of the female voice by going over the track and then deleting that track. And then we have a Jingles category, which can be used for our loops down here. And then you have an audio region, which is where you can manipulate or edit your audio outputs. First, let's go over male voice, and we'll click on the eye here. There are all sorts of vocal effects that can take place within the podcast, and GarageBand has made those embedded here. And you see just some of them as I go up here along the menus. So it's up to you what you like to use. I just prefer traditional no effects. So you just hear my voice and nothing else. What Dr. Kratos and I want to hear is an effective podcast that conveys how these songs speak to you presently. And we want to make sure that samples or some sort of audio sampling or distortions don't get in the way of that. Then over here, there's a separate track for jingles. And jingles or loops, as a broader term, can be found over here on the right side by clicking on the loops. And you've got many different kinds of jingles taking place, sound effects, etc. There are also favorites too as well. Let's go back to jingles, and there really are many of them. As an example, etc., etc. So let's say I want to use this as my jingle. So if I wanted to put that in your podcast in the first place, which you certainly do not have to, you're going to drag it over, hold, and then place it in where you like. And then you see all the different outputs there from that. Now, let's say that I want to put in something from my iTunes library. I'm going to click on this down here, this button, and then click on Audio. And then you'll see iTunes as well as music. So I'm going to choose from my iTunes library, Pat Metheny, Across the Sky. I'm going to drag that, and a new track will be created here. I'm going to move that. You can move tracks across however you wish. If you want it to be later in your podcast, you can move it over appropriately. If not, you can move it over here. That's fine. And let's see what we have right now. That stadium crowd chants awfully loud, so what I can do is I can gradually fade it out, and how I do that is the following. I'm going to click on that button, which I just did, and then I'm going to click on this button over here next to track volume. That gives me manual access to track volume. I would like to gradually decay this over time to then coincide with the opening of Across the Sky. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this button. I just clicked on it, and I'm going to gradually move it down to a reasonable audio level. Let's say there, and we're going to fool around with this just a little bit. Let's go back to the beginning. Let's play. We still hear the stadium crowd chants in the background, however, Across the Sky is much more pronounced and much more to the fore. I can do the same thing here with Across the Sky in the first place. In fact, I can raise up the volume levels just a little bit, like so, and let's play that. Creates a neat effect. We'll stop that. Now let's say that you wanted to cut the audio in a certain place. Let's take Across the Sky. What you need to do is take your cursor and go below this plus minus level here in the middle of the audio region editor. And you want to see this cross here. And you're going to just click on the region. Let's say I want to get rid of the beginning. Click, hold. Then from here you can go up to edit and cut, or you can just click delete, which I just did. Now you can move this further to where it started, or you can just leave it where it is. That's fine. And hear the audio effect there taking place. We edited the intro to Across the Sky. Next, let's say you want to now put in your own 2 cents. You want to narrate now from the top. What you need to do is go back, click on No Effects, click on this part of it, and then you're going to click on the record button. Make sure, and this is a very important point, to click on the slash across the speaker button there for both audio tracks. We do not want to hear any audio spillover from the laptop into your narration. And now I'm going to speak for just a few seconds to sort of give you the idea of what is happening with GarageBand and recording with your No Effects track. And now I'm going to speak for just a few seconds to sort of give you the idea of what is happening with GarageBand and recording with your No Effects track. Great. Let's say I want to be really clean and I want to edit the beginning of this. So there's less of a delay of me entering. So I'm going to click and then delete. And then I'll move this over to the beginning. And now I'm going to speak for just a few seconds to sort of give you... Great, excellent. Now let's bring back in Across the Sky as well as that stadium crowd chant. And now I'm going to speak for just a few seconds to sort of give you the idea of what is happening with GarageBand and recording with your No Effects track. You notice right there that the volume for both the chant and Across the Sky instantly went up the second I stopped speaking. That's due to the ducking which I placed on. With this yellow arrow being on, the ducking is taking place. If it were not taking place and it were down, then everything would be the same. And now I'm going to speak for just a few seconds to sort of give you the idea of what is happening with GarageBand and recording with your No Effects track. You just perceived that there was no change after I stopped speaking between the chant and Across the Sky. They were the same volume throughout. So that's something for you to be aware of if you wish that or not. Now, let's say you're done with your podcast. You've edited everything as you wish. All your audio tracks are in there. You're going to go up to Share, then Export Podcast to Disk. Then you can choose either to encode it as AAC or MP3. Remember, SoundCloud takes either one. I tend to choose MP3 because that's just my default. You're going to click to Export. We will not export as an enhanced podcast. That's correct because we don't have any visual images, no movie files. So we're going to click Continue. And then you come up with a file name that is appropriate for your podcast. You choose where to save it. I tend to choose a podcast, and then you click Save. And then it takes a few minutes for it to save and load all up, and it should arrive on your desktop here. So if you have any questions about anything to do with GarageBand, please feel free to let me know or email me. Thanks so much.